Welcome to 19 o'clock news. My name is Mahou Shoujo M, and this is my co-host.
That Kodocha Girl, also known as Ari.
And today we are going to be discussing episode 11, Father, You Are My Father, and also the corresponding manga chapters, which are chapters 9 and 10.
Yes, one of my favorite episodes and chapters early in the series.
Yes, agreed. When I was looking for the corresponding manga chapters, I kind of went to volume 3 somewhat instinctually because I was like, oh, that happened later. But it's actually pretty close to the beginning of the series.
Yeah, I had forgotten, when I think about the events that happen in that episode and that chapter, I always also think, that seems like something that would happen like in the middle of a series, but it really happens super early on.
Yeah.
And it's, what happens, what we're going to talk about today is pretty intense situation for early on in a series aimed at preteens and children.
Yep. Oh yeah, well that's something we'll get into it when we get to it, but
Hmm.
yeah, I feel like the anime went a little hard on
Oh yeah,
on some of
yeah.
the stuff. So something that I had also kind of forgotten about this episode is that I would say 50% of it is the, Sana shooting commercials and the Rei and Asako stuff.
Hmm.
I had remembered a lot more of it being about the Hayamas.
Yeah, because that's the more interesting part of the episode, in my
I
opinion.
I I agree. I agree. The commercial montages were cute, but that was a lot of screen time.
Yeah, it is what it is, but it's great and it's charming in its own way. It
Oh yeah,
adds to the comedy of the show. But
that's
like I
fair.
said, the meat of the episode is definitely in the second half.
I agree. And something good for this episode is it's got that Rei and Asako kiss that we like so much.
Yes.
Um, it's yeah. It's so I almost don't want to talk too much about that scene because I feel like we've talked about it a fair bit in recent months between the Valentine's Day episode and the Sana
Yeah, and
episode.
I think we did in the last two. We talked about that scene because I was actually when I was watching the episode and I was taking notes for our show today, I was like, oh yeah, we've talked about that so many times, and like I just stopped writing notes about it because I was like, okay, well, we already got we've already discussed this in detail, so I feel like we can kind of slide through that.
Oh yeah, we can definitely just pick up on the second half of the episode when Sana gets the phone call.
Yeah.
Or I guess we'll maybe when Sana runs into Fuyuki on the street.
Hmm.
Would that be better?
Well, actually, I thought for our viewers we could do an episode 10 recap, just a
Let's do
short,
it.
brief recap, because I wrote down some notes for that. So episode 10 was where Sana realizes that Ray is not actually her boyfriend and they're not in love with each other. So this is also when, she's so devastated by it, she runs away and she runs into Akito. And this is where he says the infamous line, because I don't hate you.
Perfection.
Hmm.
Oh, which comes up later in this episode too.
Yes.
Ah.
And another thing I wanted to touch on in the episode 10 recap was this is also the episode where they have the analogy with Tsuyoshi's younger sister, Aono, and the chicken egg, and
Mm.
how the chicken egg from the store is supposed to symbolize how believing in this false dream can lead to heartbreak later on. And that was something that I really thought was a great analogy that Obana came up with because this is also in the manga as well.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to point that out. I really liked how that drove the point of the episode home, is using that analogy to show just how much the situation with Ray hurt Sana.
Oh, absolutely. And I do love that section of the manga too, that earlier in the chapter, because so much of that section is like Sana and Akito in the park. And she's like,
Mhm.
is this how Iono will feel about the chicken one day? And he's like, yes, that is why I told you not to do it. Um, which and they have their conversation about how they're opposites, which made me laugh. Definitely holds up.
Yeah, I love the part when she's talking about how annoying it is that they disagree on everything, and I love how like Akito's so serious all the time. So to hear him describe their fighting as fun, it just makes me laugh.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's probably, I mean, when you look at his relationship with the other boys, people kind of defer to him a lot, I think.
Mhm.
And I think Sana's probably one of the, besides like Natsumi and his family, who like really pushes back on him and like
Mhm.
tells him that he's being stupid, you know? So sometimes people just like to be argued with. I don't know.
Yeah, I personally would find it annoying like Sana, but you know,
Me
it's like
too.
you said, I mean people they have debate teams at school, so obviously, you know, people are into it.
Oh yeah. Meanwhile, if somebody like looks at me wrong, I'm just gonna start crying. So
Me too.
okay, is there anything else for, because that's where episode 10 kind of leaves off, and then the beginning of episode 11 is Sana and Ray filming all those commercials, and then Sana directing Ray towards Asako.
Yes. So I actually had a question. Did you have a favorite commercial that Sana was shooting in the
Oh,
episode?
I don't know. I did think that the Romeo and Juliet one for the insurance company was pretty funny.
I wrote down
Also,
that one
just
as my favorite.
yeah. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Two hearts, one mind. I also there I am very partial towards the eye drop one too on the beach,
hmm
because you're like, wow, she's like taking a moment to herself, and then it's just another commercial. So your favorite was the Romeo and Juliet one?
Yes, with the ice cream one being a close second, although those are technically four because they did one for each season.
That's fair. That's fair. I do love the ice cream one also. They really did a great job with the English version of Sana's rap.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else on
Um,
those? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember episode 10 that well, so I'm trusting in you.
well, that was the beginning of episode 11, was the
Oh,
commercials.
yes. Yes, yes, yes.
So there's a moment or they're going to Asako's house, and Sana and Ray are having a conversation. And in the Japanese version, she is trying to describe something. I can't remember what she's describing, which I should have written it down. But she says something is like flavorless, and
Oh, yes. Oh,
Ray's like,
you
"Oh,
mean,
you mean distasteful?" Um,
yes.
and but in the English version, she says something about being literal, and
And he's like, oh, you mean liberal?
yeah,
Yeah, there were a lot more of those, especially in the front half of the episode. Just like little tiny word changes that like don't ultimately change the context or matter, but still bother me specifically. I'd say like half of my notes on the dub are things like that. Like even from the beginning of the episode, where Hisai is, you know, talking to Sana, and Sana's like, am I being a bad friend? And then in the Japanese version, it's, am I being antisocial? Which to
Mhm.
me, there's a slightly different context for those phrases.
Right.
I don't think those are equivalent, personally.
I don't think so either. Because being a bad friend is, I feel like that's a very broad statement. Being antisocial just can mean like I'm not talking enough or I'm not hanging out with you guys enough. But being a bad friend is more of a broad term, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. Well, also, I feel like Kasana is not being a bad friend. She's just busy, and all of us go through periods where we're unable to be with our friends or family as much as we would like to be. And that doesn't
Yeah.
make you a bad friend or a bad family member. It just means you're busy. That one bugged me enough to write it down.
Yeah, I also noticed a lot more changes in the between the English and Japanese versions.
There were a
Um,
bunch in this episode.
yeah. Another one that, and I feel like we touched on this in the last episode, was how she's telling Asako that she's all grown up, and in the Japanese version, she basically says, like, "Did you get your period?" And I noticed something interesting in the on the subtitles while I was watching the Japanese version, and I was watching it on the new Blu-rays put out by Discotek.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Me too.
is they said she said something about getting red rice. Did you pick up on that?
Yes, are you celebrating with red rice? I think is a Japanese euphemism for have you
Hmm.
started your period?
Yeah, I could, infer that. I actually
Yeah.
looked it up just to see what it meant, and
Ooh.
I couldn't find anything, which was odd. But
Hmm.
I don't think I was looking up the right thing. I should have looked up, red rice and, you know, period.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just looked up red rice and like bunch of like recipes came up, but
Oh.
that was a mistake on my part.
No, no. I mean, hey, you took it one step further. I was just like, yeah, I think I know what this means and moved on.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, then after, I did that and I clicked off of it, I was like, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what it means.
yeah. Yeah. We talked about the punctuation joke in the last podcast episode, but
Mhm.
that I think was a pretty good joke. Good joke writing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I like the context of in the manga it's more explicit as well,
Oh,
with
for sure.
the whole period thing.
Oh yeah.
That context, is good to have, I guess.
Oh
But
yeah, totally. I
like
also
Isan is a blossoming woman.
yes, indeed. Indeed. I also
Um,
in terms of dub versus sub changes, something I thought was really interesting that, in the sub and in the manga, Sana, like when she's kind of giving her serious talking to Rei and Osako, is just clearly like regurgitating stuff she's heard Misako say, because she's like trying to play like she's a grown up, and so she's saying grown up things, but she doesn't totally know what they mean. And in the dub, they just kind of bypassed all of that. And even Babbitt's like, "Did you come up with that yourself?" And I just thought that was interesting. Did they not feel that they could convey that she was repeating something she'd heard, or why?
yeah, I hadn't noticed that actually.
There
So,
were a bunch in this one. Even in the when they're filming the commercials, there's like Suji is like, "Would you like a towel for your face?" And then in the English version, they were like, "Would you like to take your makeup off?" Which I thought was interesting also. I don't know.
mhm.
Just weird little changes.
Yeah, I always wonder like how do they decide on what to change? And sometimes I wonder if maybe the changes have to do with like maybe they have to shorten a phrase and they can't do it, so they decide to come up with something else. But then, of course, there's other changes that lean more into the censorship category, which are the changes that are the ones that you and I both feel are a bit questionable at times.
Oh, same. Same, same. Although I was talking to a friend from Discord recently in messages about like how censored the Italian version of Kodocha was, which we have a lot of Rosanna fans in our Discord server, and I guess I hadn't realized like just how censored Kodocha was in Italy. So it made me appreciate the dub a little bit more for not being as censored.
Yeah, the Italian version to me, I haven't watched any of it. I'm aware of the censorship. I've actually, and I'll definitely cover this in a video on my channel, because on some of those old fan sites on the Internet Archive for Kadocha, there's some that are for the Italian version, and
Uh-huh.
they'll have pages that are dedicated to all the changes that were made in the Italian version
Ooh.
as opposed to the Japanese. So it'd be interesting to go through those lists. I mean, they're pretty lengthy. I definitely want to cover that in a future video, or we could do it on a podcast episode.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
to me, the Italian version comes across more as a children's Saturday morning cartoon.
That was actually the
Um,
conversation that I was having
okay.
with our friend too. Is I feel like if Kadocha had been in that time slot, we would have gotten a lot more changes, like the same
Yeah.
kinds that like Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, etc. all got.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I guess we should be thankful that never happened.
Yeah. Then I feel like half of this podcast would just be discussing changes. Whereas I feel like at least, we always talk a little bit about it, but we don't have to spend an entire episode, lengthwise going through everything that they changed per episode. But it is interesting to me too how there seems to be, at least within the Funimation verse, a lot of crossover with voice actors also doing like script writing and those other kind of crew pieces,
Yeah.
or at least they seemed to back in the day. So I don't know if that's quite that way now, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that too, especially when my husband and I were watching Yu Yu Hakusho. And I noticed that in the credits. It seemed like a lot of the voice actors were script writers. In fact, I think the voice actor for Ray,
John
John
Bergmeyer.
Bergmeyer, yeah, love him. I think he wrote some for Kodocha, but for some of them.
Hey, I mean, I don't know. It's a gig's a gig, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like if I was doing that, like I'd be like, yeah, I'd love to write for it. Like I'd do everything.
Oh, same. 100%. I love that. I feel like we went down a bit of a rabbit hole there.
It's fine. It makes
Have
things interesting and spicy. So
Oh, good. Oh, there's like one other little dub versus sub change that I noticed that I thought was interesting. Is toward the end of the episode, when, spoiler alert, since we haven't talked about any of the Fuyuki stuff yet, but Sana and Akito are visiting Fuyuki in the hospital, and and he's like, I would love a sake or something, and in the Japanese version, and Akito's like, no, don't do that, absolutely not. And Fuyuki laughs, but then in the dub, he's like, hospital food is terrible. Can you please
yeah.
sneak me in something? And Akito's like, sushi. Which is
Yeah,
like, I thought it was interesting.
I prefer the Japanese version for that. It's
Do
funnier to me.
too. Just Fuyuki being like, I have a stomach ulcer. God, would I like a drink? Like, relatable.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. And then my only other dub note was, I guess this might be one of the first episodes that as we've been doing our podcast, that I've watched in the dub version. And I guess I had never heard Hiroshi Uchiyamada's voice before in the dub.
Mm-hmm.
But what is that voice?
Yeah, it's like
it was odd.
Like Barney the dinosaur.
Yeah, it was a strong, congratulations to the voice actor for making a brave, strong choice, but also, oh my God, what was that? I was alarmed. It really got me. I was like, what is happening here? But I
Yeah.
also I can't think of a
It's
lot of times that
interesting.
he speaks. Like, he's around a lot, but he doesn't talk much, I feel like,
No, he's
as a
very
background
much a
character.
background. I don't even is he in the manga? I don't even know. I don't even remember.
I don't think so.
A lot of the
Question
TV
mark?
crew people don't seem to be in the manga.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
we don't have Zenjiro. Zenjiro's manager obviously isn't there either.
That's fair. Well, I feel like we don't have, whereas the Kodocha anime, I feel like centers itself a bit within the shooting of the Child's Toy TV show.
Mm-hmm.
In the manga, we don't see that much of Sana shooting Child's Toy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I feel like we see her working on other projects or her other general celebrity pieces, but I don't feel like we get to see that much of her at that studio working on that thing. Like, more hallway stuff, if anything,
Right. More interactions with like the producers and like just like you said, like I feel like in the manga there's also more focus on like when she's getting interviewed. And that's one thing also that when I watched the anime and read the manga, and I'm sure we'll touch on this once we get really deep into the series, the anime. And there's a manager that Natsumi eventually has. It's like this really annoying woman. I don't think she's in the manga. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Her voice is it's like nails on a chalkboard.
Oh man, good times with anime shenanigans.
But yeah, we'll definitely touch on that, I'm sure, in a future episode. But
yeah.
today we are talking about episode 11. So let's get into the heart and soul of the episode. So once we see Rei and Asako coming together for the first time, we flash back over to Sana, and she's like, all right, I'm ready to go out, and there's other pimp in the sea. I'll find a boyfriend somewhere someday. And she runs into Akito's dad, and he's got some sushi, and he tells her all about how Akito, he loves sushi. It's like one of the only things that he really, really enjoys. And he tells her about how when Akito says, I don't hate it, it means he loves it. So that's when her mind starts turning, and she's like starting to piece together how, when Akito said that before to her, does he love me? And then she's just kind of stuck. She can't quite make that jump to,
I know. It's so frustrating. This is probably the closest she comes in 102 episodes and like 10 volumes to figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just like, nah, just.
And she basically thinks like he likes her in the way that he likes sushi, like food, and it's very interesting and
Oh
odd.
yeah. Well, I also wonder too if there's just some like denial happening there, because I mean, even in the manga, like once they are kind of on the road to getting together, you know, love confessions have occurred, we're moving that direction. She has a lot of she seems very unwilling to change their relationship. It feels very scary to her.
Hmm.
And so I wonder if some of that's this as well, you know, like even like later in the episode when Misako and Shimura are teasing her about Akito being her boyfriend, she's just like, ah, no, I don't have that. No, 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 no. Because I think, you know, maybe on some levels, deep down, she did know that her relationship with Ray wasn't real.
Hmm.
But the possibility of a real relationship kind of being in front of her freaks her out. Maybe she's been a
Yeah,
commitment phobe this entire time. I don't know.
I mean,
Probably not.
it's hard to say because, you know, again, and I know we've talked about this before, but, you know, what happened with her and Ray really did traumatize her in a way. So, I mean, and at that point, you know, this is literally right, like a couple days or maybe the day after, like she just quote unquote broken up with Ray.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she's probably still not mentally ready to like think like, you know, like, oh, you know, he's in love with me.
It's fair.
But you know, there's some comments that she does make that we'll get into later in the episode that and it's kind of weird because it's like she knows it but she doesn't accept it.
Oh, that like Akito has feelings for her?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah.
I agree. Yeah, she is that meme that is like, I pretend I do not see it. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I think, yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, cool. I love that scene with Sana and Fuyuki on the sidewalk. One, because I love Fuyuki Hayama so much, my angel boy. One, I love both of his voice actors for both the Japanese and English versions. I think that they really do a lovely job with that kind of soft-spoken, monotone, just really excellent like line readings that
Oh
I
yeah.
really appreciate. That
Yeah,
just
I
like, so he's
definitely
funny,
agree.
but you know, not because I think he could have been like kind of creepy or spooky, depend if it had been played differently, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
But they keep it funny, and I love that scene where she's just like, "Wow, you look terrible,"
Yeah.
basically. That's
The
our girl.
foreshadowing there.
Yeah, seriously. After that, it goes straight to the Hayama's house, right, for dinner,
Yeah.
and
So
then
that's when it gets really crazy. And that was
yo,
one of those shocking Kodocha moments, which is one of the reasons, you know, why this anime is so great because it's like we're going along, it's being cutesy and fun, and then the next minute we're looking at Fuyuki on the table in his own blood.
and so much blood. Oh my gosh. Like
Right?
I when I went back to read the manga chapter, I was like, okay, like you can tell there's some blood, but it's not like I don't want to say the anime was excessive, but it was a lot.
Yeah, I was honestly stunned the first time I watched it. I thought
Uh,
he like was I literally thought he died.
oh,
The first
damn.
time I saw that, I thought he had just like something, I don't know what it could have been, you know, obviously, but I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, he just died on screen in front of us.
Yeah. Gosh, can you imagine if they had decided to write off my beloved Fuyuki that soon into the series? But also,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what would have happened to Natsumi and Akito? Like, they have some other relatives, you know, that's kind of talked about a little bit in the manga, but like,
Mhm. Yeah, it's really weird to think about how the series would have turned out if you would have taken Fuyuki out of the equation. It's really hard to picture it. I can't even tell you, like, I feel like Akito would be like, I feel like he'd be a lot colder and more closed off. And I feel like he wouldn't have opened up to Sana as much as he did in the beginning. I feel like there would have been like a whole like healing process that he would have had to deal with, and it just would have been really, really heartbreaking for both of them if their
oh, for
dad
sure.
also passed away.
Oh, for sure. But it is interesting to think about, especially like if you think about like some of the rest of the events of the series. Because Fuyuki is kind of an inciting incident in his own way for especially things that happen in volume 10, right? So
Yeah. Hmm.
like say volume 8 does happen. Akito's arm is messed up, but then in volume 10, there's nobody to push for his rehabilitation. So he just like never gets use of that hand again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of going, It's a Wonderful Life here.
Yeah. It's honestly, like, talking about it, and like, I know they're fictional characters, but like, it just makes my heart sink inside me, like, thinking about like where he would be without his father.
Oh, agreed. Especially because like I love Fuyuki's character growth a lot, and I think that this episode obviously is an important piece of it because he's learning that he can't push himself so hard at work and be equally as present at home as the sole parent and person who's running the house.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of, I think, a priority shift for him, you know, and not putting work first.
Yeah, like, he definitely started to see that there was a problem when Sana confronted him about the TV movie. But I think the situation with his which we find out that it was an ulcer later on, I feel like the ulcer situation really solidified that for him. Like, okay, things need to really change. I need to put in a strong effort to, you know, because my children need me.
And yeah, I think it's that lesson I think a lot of adults struggle with, which is you can't be 100% everywhere all at once. And so you do have to kind of pick your priorities. You know, you can't be 100% at work and at home.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to find that balance. And it, I think, and Fuyuki still has a tough job and he still has to travel for work and all of those pieces. But I think this was probably a wake up call to him that he couldn't hold it all at the same time. So, ooh.
Obana is such a good writer because
Yes.
when you really break it down, like every single character. And I've noticed this during our podcast and even with my videos when I'm writing about each of the characters. Like, there's not really one character, you know, we have background characters that could have used more development, of course. But I feel like with every character though, there's a lesson that you can take out of it. Or there's a real world moral that you can take out of the character. And it's really amazing writing that, like, you know, that she was able to have all of these different themes in just 10 volumes. You know, I honestly, like, she's probably my favorite manga author of all time, and I've only read part of Honey Bitter, so but she really is. I love how she puts a lot of depth into all of her characters, and she makes them feel like real people. Because, like I said, you know, like, Kito's an animated character, but like, just thinking about him not having his dad, it hurts me. And to me, that's the mark of a great writer, is when your characters really feel larger than life.
Oh, I completely agree. And I think, yeah, Obana did an amazing job. Because, I mean, yeah, we've both read a fair amount of other manga and watched a bit of other anime, but there's something about Kodocha, and I think some of that is, it's just so, everybody is so human. You know, like, nobody is perfect. Everybody is very flawed. And I think that makes them more relatable. And it makes you care about them and want to root for them and want them to do better, because they feel human and their struggles aren't always so different from ours, right? She is an amazing writer. And she was like 23 when she did the series. Like, that part boggles my mind too.
Same here.
You know, so young. So I guess scooting along in the episode, Yuki ends up in the hospital.
Yes.
Akito calls Sana, who decides to go to the hospital and sit with them, which I really love that, because, you know, sometimes you don't always have to, like, do something, you know, like, sometimes, like, you can just be with somebody who is grieving or going through something hard. Like, you can't say anything to make it better. You can't do anything to change the situation, but you can just be with them. And I think Sana does a great job of that.
I also thought it was very sweet how Akito calls her, and you know, from what we can see, he calls her first. You know, he doesn't call Tsuyoshi, he calls her, and I feel like just that, in such a serious situation, that really shows how much he's really grown attached to her. over the last few episodes and chapters.
Oh, for sure. One of my notes actually was it feels on some levels that Sana's the only person that he really opens up to, that he's 100% himself with, which is pretty amazing considering how short their relationship is, especially at this stage in the series. Though also Tsuyoshi, I think would have been a great person to call. Tsuyoshi obviously has a good relationship with the Hayamas. I think it's the next episode, maybe the episode after, when Tsuyoshi goes and visits Fuyuki in the hospital.
Yeah,
With the apples.
Yeah.
I think it's episode 13. I'm feeling pretty good about that right now, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah, it is, because I did a video on Tsuyoshi, and I specifically remember, like, I covered that whole episode. So yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Look at you.
I'm starting to memorize like all the numbers now, because like my thing is and I don't know if other people are like this, but I'm really not good at like chapters, episodes, like the numbers of when things happen. Like, I just remember the thing, but I'm really bad at like being like, oh, this was episode blah blah blah, and like I really wish I need to write. I need to have like a sticky note and like write it down and like just put it on my computer monitor, and so I don't forget. And like if someone asks me, I can be like, okay, this happens in this place in the series and not have to scramble, in my manga. Because I got a message on Twitter like a couple weeks ago from somebody who watched my channel. It was like, when's the chapter when so and so does this? And I was like, oh no, I don't remember that. I can't answer that question right off the top of my head. I have to kind of dig for it.
I totally hear you. And honestly, like half of the reason I include chapter numbers and episode numbers for anything Daily Kodocha posts is just because, like, as somebody who's like goes through Twitter or goes through Pinterest and like is looking for pictures, I'll be like, oh, when was that? I would like to go to that space in the series. But people more often than not don't include chapter and episode numbers. So that's when I started trying to be better about that. But
yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's definitely inspired me to try and pay more attention to that, for sure.
Aw, thank you. That's sweet of you. I don't think there's anything, I don't know. I think the way you do everything is fine. So don't feel
Thank
pressured.
you.
But...
Oh no, I don't feel pressured, but like if somebody asks me, I want to be able to, tell them where the screenshot is from or where the scan is from. Yeah. I don't want to leave somebody hanging.
It does get kind of tricky though. I will say, I will admit this here. I don't think my chapter numbers for the manga are always perfect. Because I'm counting them within the volume. So I'm going from like cover, like the cover page to cover page, trying to kind of decide like where a chapter is necessarily. It's not as clean cut as like if you're looking at like the fan translation, for instance. That's pretty like you just sort of click through the chapters and that's really easy. In the books, I'm kind of like, okay, so I know that chapters 1 through 5 are in volume 1. I know that chapters 6 through 10 are in volume 2, roughly. But I do think that there have been a few times where I've like counted wrong, especially in the later volumes.
Oh, yeah.
So like it's a ballpark. We're close. Or even in our Valentine's episode here, I like kept repeatedly saying the wrong chapter number. I had to add a correction to the description box.
Yes, I noticed, but it's fine. I feel like we're probably gonna get some comments that are like, oh, we don't care. Because if I was listening to this podcast, I would not care.
See, I don't know. I was gonna be like, I would care, but then I was thinking about it. I actually don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
I'll own that I'm not always right. I do my best, but I am only human. So
yeah.
So yeah.
So once Sana gets to the hospital in the episode, it actually this is one of my favorite lines in the series is what happens when she meets up with Akito and he looks really upset and distraught, and he gives her a hug, or she gives him a hug, and there's a moment of reflection with her, and she realizes, we're just kids, and what will we do, without our parents to be around, and we're not ready to be grown-ups yet. That's why we're children, because we can't do what adults do yet. And I thought that was a very profound moment, especially for a girl her age to be thinking of something like that. It shows just how mature Sana is becoming.
Oh, I completely agree. I love that scene too. Like she just sort of is like, we talk a big game, but we don't know anything. Like, we have no control over how things happen to us. And that comes up a bit over the course of the series. But I thought it was interesting in the sub, she says we are only half grown-ups.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting, and also a slight reference to the legal adult age in Japan is 20. They have coming of age day, which is in January each year for everybody who turned 20 in the previous year, and it's a ceremony where you dress up in full kimono and you go listen to a bunch of speeches, take a bunch of pictures with your friends, and you are officially an adult as from then on out. And it's interesting to me that like it's referenced in not as many words over the course of the series. Like, there's definitely a scene, I think, in volume 10 where in the Tokyo Pop translation, Sana's like, when do we become adults? Is it 18? Is it 21? And I'm like, those are very American numbers.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't dug into the Japanese volume yet to see if my suspicion is correct, but I think it is.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Please let me know if you find out, because that's interesting. And I actually didn't know about that holiday.
Go look up pictures. It's wild. Like, I kind of wish we did something like that here.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah.
But oh well. But yeah, so I think it's interesting that she references like the only half grown-ups, because at 11 they are about halfway to 20. So it's an interesting thought anyway.
Yeah, I noticed that too in the Japanese version, but I actually didn't know, like, I didn't piece it together in my head that like, oh, she means, because the Japanese legal age, But yeah, that's interesting.
Oh, good. Yay. A fun fact for you then.
Yes, I love fun facts. I love trivia.
Oh, good. Oh, I've got probably more of them. And, oh man, and I got opinions. Can I air what is probably my most unpopular Kodocha opinion?
Absolutely.
I'm scared to say this. I am afraid. I don't like Babbitt.
I
said
figured
it.
You didn't.
I don't mind him in the more silly moments, but his interrupting very serious moments really grates on me. And this episode, he was popping up a lot to be annoying when things were serious and sad, and I was like, go away, why are you here?
I like Babbitt. Like, this is what I'll say about Babbitt. I like Babbitt a lot in the first series. I think he's funny, but again, I'm with you there. I don't like when he pops up like in the middle of a serious moment and he just breaks the tension, and it's like, we could have done without that. But he starts to get on my nerves in the second half of the series, because that half is more focused on the drama and the romance, and it's like he just doesn't fit anymore.
Why is he at Sana and Akito's confession? Like, yeah. What are you doing in that hallway? Go away. Like, and as a mascot, I think like cute design. I love that he's on the Barucha and all of the toys and other things, and even as sort of like in the interim when they're kind of shifting between scenes, totally good with Babbitt and his presence there. But the sort of wink to the audience presence in serious scenes makes me so crazy.
Yeah, same.
Okay, that does make me feel better, because my note, I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to say this, because I feel like I'm just I feel like it's an unpopular opinion.
Well, I feel like the Kodocha community in general, like the vibe I get from it is everybody's pretty chill and laid back, and people like to have discussions about it. And I feel like it's, at least I've noticed it's like the least toxic anime community that I've seen in my time that I've been, in internet circles. So I feel like you can say that and not get a whole lot of backlash,
We'll see. But maybe everybody will stop respecting me as a person.
I doubt that.
No, I'm being silly, but I agree. It is a pretty non-toxic fandom, and I think a lot of that is just because like we are so small, and we're always so happy to have found each other.
Yeah, because it's like I've never known anyone like in real life that's known about it or likes it, and it's just like I wish more people knew about it, because I feel like it's one of those series that should be as well known as like Ouran High School or Fruits Basket, or even what's that other one it's very similar, it's about elementary school kids. What is it? It's that one about, is it called Gawk and Alice?
Oh, Gakuen Alice? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that one's not as popular, as the other series I mentioned before that one, but it's still, I feel like that one's more well known than Kodocha. And
I think so.
I'm like Kodocha needs to be up there because it's like it's a very unique take on the shoujo genre, at least in my opinion, because there's this comedy that exists in it that's I feel like doesn't really exist in other series that are in the genre. And I feel like that's what makes it good, is because it just balances comedy and romance so well.
Oh, I completely agree. In terms of why Kadocha isn't as popular, at least in the US, I have a variety of theories. I mean, but there's also some facts. The fact that it was only in print for I think 2 years before Tokyo Pop lost the license.
Hmm.
And when Tokyo Pop had the license, you've definitely heard me rant about their advertising for Kadocha. I don't think that they did a good job representing the series and getting people to read it. And then, of course, there's the whole piece with the anime not being finished and also being hard to access for years and years and years. So I agree that it should be more well known, but yeah, I don't know.
Here's a hot, and I'm glad it ended up in the hands of Funimation, but I almost feel like if it ended up in the hands of like 4 kids and was a Saturday morning cartoon, might be a little bit more well known. I know
Oh,
that
for
sounds
sure.
really sad, but
No, you're not
uh,
wrong. Like it that would have been, I mean, any kind of syndication like that would have gone to, especially since like a lot of Saturday morning cartoons and for kids and stuff, like that wasn't cable television. That was anybody who had a TV could access that. So by being cable TV alone, by being an unusual cable TV channel, like it wasn't exactly on the starting off on a strong foot for taking a hold in US anime fans, you
yeah.
know?
Mhm.
But I completely agree. Would it have been a dubbing disaster? Absolutely, it would have been. But you're right; it would have definitely reached more people.
I also do think it probably would have been a lot like the Italian version too,
Oh
from what I
yeah.
know about that. And I think I read that like some of the episodes were just not aired there, like the really, the controversial ones that might be
Mm.
interpreted certain ways. I feel like they probably would have done that here too, because I really don't know how they would get away with like Takashi Gojo. I'm trying to
Oh.
think of like how they could like dub that and make it different, and I really
Oh yeah, that I think that arc would have just been, yeah, I completely agree. I think they would have skipped it. I mean, that's kind of what happened with a lot of Sailor Moon, that happened with a lot of Cardcaptor Sakura, although in those cases they were just trying to cut out anything vaguely gay. Yeah, I agree. They would have cut that entirely.
Yeah.
Oh,
And now we have cousins memes.
yeah, that's oh man.
uh
That's never not gonna make me nuts. I just I'm like, really? That was our solution? Cousins? Okay.
Oh man. And I remember it. I watched Sailor Moon when I was very young,
Oh
and
yeah.
I remember the cousins, and
Oh, same.
as a 5-year old, it does go over your head. Like you can't really see the innuendos there because but when you watch the cousins clips as an adult, you're like, okay, they're getting a little too close to each other, you know.
Oh, totally. It was also like Haruka is a gay icon, a flirty gay icon at that. No one is safe from Haruka Tenno's flirting. Like,
Yeah.
so it is just funny that they were like, and this very straight person. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. Because like it's overt. But
Yeah,
whatever.
when I started getting into anime again, I this was around the time when Sailor Moon Crystal was a thing.
Hell yeah.
And I started watching, I think it was the third season when they show up. And
Yeah.
yeah, and she like starts flirting, with Sailor Moon, and I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, and it clicked in my head. It clicked in my head. I was like, oh, I get it. I get why there's a cousins meme now. I
Yes.
get why they're making fun of that.
It's also just like it was like it wasn't just like, oh, like a little gay. Like it was very gay. Like I just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fine. I don't know. Cousins, what a solution. Oh man.
But hey, we have
It's
a new
fine.
dub of the original, and it's really good. I like it a lot.
Oh, I haven't actually I haven't watched any of the new Sailor Moon dub of the OG.
Yeah, it's great. They fixed a lot of the problems with the original.
I am somewhat fond of the original in some ways, though, just because like I did grow up on it. But actually, oh, here's an interesting, not related to Kodocha at all, fun fact. I have a couple of Sailor Moon mangas, I think that were part of the first round of prints from before Tokyo Pop was Tokyo Pop. It was a company called Pocket Mix. And so I have a couple of Pocket Mix editions of Sailor Moon Super S. And they made it more like the TV show. Like they even changed the names to be like the TV show. So Usagi is Serena, Mamoru is Darien, Chibiusa is Rini, like the whole thing. So even the manga kind of took cues from the original dub, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I watched a video, and shout out to whoever made this video. I wish I could remember your channel name, but they showed the differences between all the Sailor Moon manga from back in the day, and it was really interesting.
That is really interesting.
And I specifically remember them talking about that, how they did they had one where they had it more like the English dub, the original one, and how they had the names and some of the stuff from the original Japanese manga was cut. And I thought that was kind of BS, but I mean, kids were reading it, so I get why they did it back in the day, but at the same time, it's like just if you're gonna have something that is created that's it's a form of art, like don't change it. To me, that's disrespectful to the artist.
Oh, I completely agree. But something I find really interesting is that, particularly with like comics and graphic novels, there's never an expectation that Batman needs to be appropriate for children under 10 in the comic book world,
Yeah.
Like, so why, and even at that time, that was still true. Like, so why is that the expectation for imported comic works,
Yeah,
Interest.
I can't think of a reason. But yeah.
So anyway, that's conversation for a different day.
Yes.
And if anybody comes up in the comments being like, actually, comic book codes, I don't know. I'm tired. No. Do not bring your well actually to my comments.
All right. Anyway. So go on. I'm sorry.
Oh no. I was like, what's your next thought or note?
All right. So let's get back to the episode and chapter. So Fuji's in the hospital. He has an ulcer. So I also wanted to say that after this event, this is when in the episode, Sana gives Akito his first barucha.
Woohoo! Of all of the anime only like inventions, the barucha is maybe one of my favorites.
Same here.
I think it's so silly, but I like it so much.
I want it so bad because they have they have like an actual baruchi that they made back in the day to promote the show, and it's like that one seems to be one that's really hard to track down. And
seriously,
it's very expensive too.
Yes, agreed. I've hardly seen any in all of my years of searching. Like I'll find the personality assessment notebook, the Polaroid cameras. There are drumsticks for some reason. Like
that's from the New York arc.
I don't remember that arc that well.
I don't either, but I've seen like there's like a GIF that I have saved on my computer of her and Nazumi using those.
That does make sense. Oh yeah, it's all coming together. Thank you. But I very rarely see baruchas, and if I do, they're like bananas expensive.
I know. I hate it.
Same.
Right now I've been watching for a replication of Sana's backpack, the one with the flower on it, and I've been waiting to pull the trigger. Like I haven't done it yet. I'm just like, I don't know, should I do it? But I'll figure it out. I'll let you guys know if I do. You'll see a picture of it on my Twitter.
Please let me know. My one piece of like Kodocha merch that I would drop stupid money for.
What's that?
It's the tea set.
Oh yeah, I really like the tea set.
I can't even explain why, but I want it so badly. And if I see one come my way again, I will probably just spend unwisely Just do it.
There's a YouTuber, I believe her name is Candabear, and she has a few videos where she unboxes Kodocha merch. And I think she has a video where she shows off a lot of the tea set. It's really cool. It's a really solid collection.
I want it. I want it. Anyway, that's another. We could do an episode on merch too.
Oh yeah, that's probably one of my favorite topics related to Kodocha actually is the merch, which is why I have so many content videos of like rare things that I've found online. Like it's just me showing cool merch that I found.
I love it. Okay, back to the episode, I guess.
Yes. So I think we're getting to the end here of the episode.
I think so. The only thing I'd want to touch on, especially with that last scene you referenced, is the sort of adage, or I don't know if this is like an actual Japanese like adage or saying, or if this is just something that has turned up in many different anime, but instead of saying that you're sorry, say thank you has come up here. And so Sana's like, oh, he's trying to say thank you. You're welcome. And then she makes her comment about needing a translator for Akito, which is fair.
Yeah, at that point, like I'm still trying to read them too.
Oh yeah, but that's the only other thing I'd mention for that scene. Obviously, we've got like just some really lovely friendship, a hug, some hand holding, just really being present and being there for Akito and showing him comfort, I think is what makes this episode so lovely.
Yes, I definitely feel like this episode it really conveys the one of the big themes of the series, growing up. And I like how, like I said, I like that line of Sana's where she's reflecting on being a child. And I've already said my piece on that, but I will say that this episode has one of my favorite endings. Like it was one of those moments where I literally laughed out loud. Is when she gets home and she's talking to her mom, and I love this because honestly, Misako, you're right. Like, yes, you do keep a man in the palm of your hand until they're man enough to be your boyfriend. I mean, I think she's right. I don't know about you or anyone who's listening to us today, but I mean, it worked for me.
Yes, queen, live your truth. I love that scene mostly because my only note that I have in all caps
I'll peck you, man.
It says palm-sized Akito appearance. Which just, it's so silly. And yes, no, and I'll peck you, man. They really did a great job with that, the English version.
Yeah, that was great. That was one of my favorite moments. Like like I reference it all the time, just like with my husband. Sometimes I'll say that. I love it. I'll peck you, man. What you looking at, man?
It's so silly. I love it so much. I love all of Akito's various animals over the course of this series. Oh man, so good.
I also like the line, and this was a very subtle line that she says towards the end when she's thinking about Ray and Asako, and she's like, "Man, they're probably making out like teachers right now," and
yes.
It kind of makes us think back to the whole photo situation, and I liked that little detail in there too.
Yes, I thought that was also extremely funny. I did think it was funny in the manga, and again, I didn't look up the original to compare and contrast, but in the Tokyo Pop translation, Sana says, they're probably getting it on by now. I was like, oh, okay, spicy. I mean, like, probably, but still.
The manga is very spicy sometimes. Like, sometimes Sana says some stuff like, how does she know about this? She's 11.
I don't know. Think about like when you were 11. Maybe I just like had older friends or something, but I probably would have picked up what they were putting down.
I didn't quite get there, I think, until I was about 12 or 13.
Okay. Maybe I was a little young, but well. That's youth.
Did you have older siblings?
I did not. I'm an only child, so
okay.
I did, but at 11, I was in 6th grade. Yes.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I was 12 when I was in 6th grade.
So yes, I was a year younger than most people in my grade for the most part. So that might have also been that. I started middle school at 10. turned 11 in September. That's a thing. But other than that, I would say this episode is, for the most part, a pretty faithful retelling of what's already in the manga.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on anything different other than what you just said about the teachers getting it on. But yeah, it was pretty much spot on. Most of the early chapters are, though.
Yes, I agree. But I do feel like this is one of the first episodes where, like, this episode 11 takes elements of both chapter 9 and 10, which I thought was really interesting. Yeah, so because it's for a little while there, it was kind of like a chapter and an episode were sort of the same thing. But I feel like sometime in these last few episodes, they started becoming multiple chapters in episodes, or like the beginning and the ends have been made different. I'm really struggling with this sentence, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Oh, and the only other thing I noticed in the manga is that I thought made me laugh that they didn't include in the anime was when Sana's leaving Rei's bedroom after they've had their heart-to-heart. Sana tells Misako that they've broken up and it's just business. Misako's like, oh, okay, and Sana's like, but don't you touch him in the manga, which made me laugh. That's it. That's all I had for the manga. And I think for the episode too. How about you?
Yeah, that's about all I had as well. I'm looking over my notes now to see if I missed anything, and I think we covered it all.
I think so too. And I think, well, I don't know. When we go back and listen in editing, we'll find out if we were mostly on topic or not. But right now, in this moment, I feel like we were.
Yeah, and like I said before, in previous episodes when we've gotten a little off topic, I mean, like I said, if I were listening to a podcast, I'd be interested in hearing about all sorts of stuff. Like, it doesn't matter to me as long as the main topic is eventually comes full circle.
That's fair. Well, as always, it's a pleasure. Oh, should we say something about guests and our cute little form?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can give that because you have the email and everything. So yeah.
Oh, yes. So we made a Google form. So if you would like to be a guest on this podcast, which we would love to have more friends join us, we'll put a link in the description box, but you can just send us an interest form and then we'll get back to you. Obviously, I don't think we'll be able to take like every single person who, submits a guest interest form, but it'd be really great to have some new friends join us for an episode because, yeah, it's nice to get some alternative perspectives and have other friends with new thoughts joined with us. So if you have any interest, please fill out that form. And if you have any questions about the form, please feel free to email me at shoujomahou.m@gmail.com. So I think that's it.
Yeah. And definitely do so because you, the viewer, will be picking the topic for the episode as well.
That's true.
So make sure you check out that form so you can have your voice heard for all the Kodocha fans. And yeah, like Em said, I really like to talk with other fans and hear new perspectives. So definitely take a look at that form. Think about what you'd like to talk about with us and just submit your form.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope everybody has a great week. Drop any thoughts, questions, concerns, comments in the comments, and we'll have a conversation. And if you need a link to join the Discord, please let us know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I had a great time doing the episode today, and I can't wait to meet again next month for our May episode.
Woohoo! Me too. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to 19 O'Clock News, a Kodocha podcast.
19 O'Clock News is hosted by That Kodocha Girl and Mahou Shoujo M.
We love making new friends. Feel free to join us in the Kodocha Discord under Kodocha_media.
19 O'Clock News is not affiliated with any current or previous rights holders to Kodomo no Omocha by Miho Obana.